Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Arizona Illustrated for Thursday evening, August 21st, 2008. Hello, I'm Bill Buckmaster. Tonight on Arizona Illustrated, the top charter school, estate planning in Arizona. For many, estate planning is one of those very important areas that too few people actually get around to doing. To better help understand wealth preservation, family protection, and succession planning, there's a new book titled Estate Planning in Arizona, What You Need to Know by Arizona attorney Donald Luce, who joins us now on Arizona Illustrated. Mr. Luce, good to see you.
Good to see you, Bill.
Why did you want to write this book about estate planning?
Well, first and foremost, there is a lot of misunderstanding about estate planning, and I wanted to provide a handbook for people interested in the subject so that before they see a lawyer, they'll have at least a modicum of knowledge concerning wills and trust and powers of attorney and all of the things that everybody needs to know about but don't have a place to go to find out about.
What's the starting point? What's the most important thing to have in mind before you even see an attorney or an estate planner?
You have to have a handle on why you need or want an estate plan. You have to know what you own, and you have to know what you want to do with it upon your death. So when you go in to see an attorney, the first thing the attorney is probably going to ask is, what would you like to have done with your estate upon your passing? And the book provides some, I think, thought-provoking ideas about what you might prepare yourself with before you go in to see a lawyer.
The big one's the big W, the will.
It is, and the will constitutes the foundation for every estate plan, whether you have a trust or not. And the reason the will is so important is because, first of all, a will is the only way by which a person can nominate a guardian for his or her minor children. A validly executed will serves essentially as an instrument by which a guardian is appointed. But more than that, any assets that the deceased owns at the time of death will pass either by the will to the beneficiary or by the will to a trust, or if there are no assets, then the will serves as a safeguard to make sure that if there is anything outside of trust, that it goes to trust.
And you talk about 10 common misconceptions about wills. Give us a few of those.
Well, the first misconception about a will is that if you don't have one, everything will go to the state. That's simply not true. If you don't have a will, then the state will decide where your property goes. But it won't go to the state, unless in that very rare case where you have no living relatives. Another common misconception about a will is that if you executed a will in another state and you moved to Arizona, that you automatically need to redo the will, and that's not true either. If you executed a will in a state and it was validly executed in the state in which it was executed, then it's going to be recognized in Arizona as a valid will.
How about writing out, you've heard stories, I'm sure, of people who have written out a will in longhand and was not witnessed. That's a problem, isn't it? Or no?
No, actually it isn't. It would be a problem if the person signed a typewritten will without witnesses. But if a person writes out a will in longhand, then that person has probably created a valid holographic will, is what it's called, a handwritten will. And witnesses, interestingly, are not required for that type of a document.
Okay, from wills, where do we go next? We hear a lot about health care directives, and those are so important right now.
They are. In addition to having a will that contains your last wishes, you also ought to have, at the very least, a medical power of attorney and a living will. And the reason you should have those documents is because during periods of incapacity or disability, you would want others to have the authority to make decisions on your behalf concerning your health care, and you would also want your wishes known as to the use of life-sustaining procedures and so forth. And so the only way to do that is to execute these related documents, which together comprise an estate plan.
And there's also a mental health directive too, correct?
There is indeed. By executing a mental health directive, you can effectively appoint someone to make mental health decisions on your behalf if you're not able to. including treatment decisions, which is pretty extraordinary. But that is, under Arizona law, something that every one of us has the ability to do, provided we're 18 or older and of sound mind.
And power of attorney is very important, the financial end of everything.
Yes, a power of attorney, sometimes called a durable power of attorney, sometimes called a general power of attorney, is simply an instrument executed by you or I, appointing a third person to act on our behalf in matters financial. And with a validly executed power of attorney, that person that we appoint could affect transactions in our name and do things for us that we otherwise would be required to do ourselves.
We don't have time to get into all the other aspects dealing with trust. Those are very important, and there's so many other things. What about where to keep these documents? Who should have these documents? If you've got now the will and the health care directives, do you keep them in a lockbox, or where do they go?
That's a very good question. Most people would, I believe, answer yes, you keep them in a lockbox, but the best place is not a lockbox, and I'll say why. A person who puts their will and their powers of attorney in a lockbox creates a situation where it may be difficult to find and then access those documents when they're needed. The best place to keep those documents is at home. Keep those documents with your other important papers, where you have your life insurance policies, where you have your other personal writings. You should also have your will, your powers of attorney, and your medical directives.
Great information. Don Luce, thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
The name of the book is Estate Planning in Arizona by attorney Donald Luce, and this book is available on Amazon and locally at the Barnes & Noble outlet here in southern Arizona.